Good morning, everyone. Teaching a second language is an art. There are several methods and techniques used to teach a second language. One of the well-known method is audiolingual method. The audiolingual method of teaching is defined as method which emphasizes on repetition of the words to help the students to be able to use the second language communicatively. It is also called as Army Mother because during the World War II, the US government found a great necessity to set up a special language training program to supply the language personnel in war. Therefore, government commissioned American universities to develop foreign language program for military personnel. This method makes the learner understand the second language by memorizing and practice speaking with drilling from the people communication. This method of foreign language teaching emphasizes the teaching of listening and speaking before reading and writing. It uses dialogues as the main form of language presentation and drills as the main training technique. The purpose of drills or repetition is to break down the troublesome sentences into smaller parts. The mother tongue is always discouraged in the classroom. The teacher always encourages the students to use the second language or targeted language. From this method, teacher want their students to be able to use the target language communicatively. This means students able to communicate with others with the targeted language over learning automatically without stopping to think. When they completely learn the dialogues and patterns automatically, they will communicate with others in their daily life. Even they can communicate with others in other countries, forming a new habits through overcoming the old habits, leaving the old habits like direct method and learn new methods in new language learning through dialogues. There are a lot of principles in audio language method. Now we will look after that. Language forms do not occur by themselves, they occur more naturally within the context. Their native language and targeted language have different linguistic systems. They should be kept apart so that the student's native language interferes as little as possible with the student's attempts to acquire the target language. One of the major role of teacher is being model of the target language. Teacher should provide students with a native speaker like model. By listening to how it is supposed to sound, students should be able to mimic the model. This language learning is a process of habit formation. The more often something is repeated, the stronger the habit and greater the learning. There are a lot of characteristics of audiolingual method. First one, spoken form is first, written form is later. Dialects are main means of presenting language items. They provide learners an opportunity to practice, mimic, and memorize bits of language. Grammar is taught inductively through drills and examples. Vocabulary is limited and learned in context, not in isolation. Dialogues are main mode of translating or presenting vocabulary, structures, and it is learned through repetition and limitation. Purpose of language is the medium of instruction. Audiovisual aids are used and it is mainly teacher dominated method. Correct pronunciation of grammar emphasized, errors are carefully avoided because they lead to the formation of bad habits. Focus is always on pronunciation. Successful responses are immediately reinforced. Positive reinforcement helps the students to develop correct habits. Language teacher introduces the dialogue by modeling it two times. At other times, he or she corrects the mispronunciation by modeling the proper sounds in the targeted language. Process new vocabulary and structural patterns are presented through dialogues. Student teacher interaction is always teacher directed because, as I said earlier, it's a teacher dominated method. Emphasis is placed on the acquisition of patterns of the language. The natural order of skills presentation is adhered to: listening, speaking, reading, and last writing. The habits of students are thought to interfere with the students' attempts to master the language. The target language is mostly used in the classroom instead of native language because always teacher force students to use the targeted language. They do not encourage the students to use their native language to communicate with each other. Students memorize dialogues through mimicry. Certain sentence patterns and grammar points are included within the dialogue. Teacher is the leader. He conducting, guiding, and controlling the students' behavior in the target language. Students are taken to the imitators of teachers' model or dates. Listening and speaking are given priority in language teaching and they precede reading and writing. Instructions are given in second language. Mother tongue was not given much importance to like direct method, but it was de-emphasized so rigidly. Students' native language interferes as little as possible with the students' attempts to acquire targeted language. There are several types of learning and teaching activities in the audio language method. There are two main types. First one is mimicry, memorization of dialogues through repetition to help students learn contextualized structures, vocabulary items, pronunciation, and cultural points. The next one is pattern drills. Pattern drills of grammatical structures to enhance automaticity, fluency, and accuracy in grammatical. There are a lot of different types of drills I used to teach. First one is repetition. Students repeat an utterance aloud as soon as he or she hears it. He does this without looking at the printed text. Sound and form is important as form and order. For, for example, if a teacher said, I used to know him, then students need to say, I used to know him. The same word and same formation. Second one, inflection. One word in an utterance appears in another form when repeated. For example, if a teacher said he bought the ticket, then the student need to say he bought the tickets. They are tickets. Replacement. Next one is replacement. One word is replaced by another. If a teacher said he bought this house cheap, then the student need to say he bought it cheap. House it. Fourth one, restatement. The student rephrases an utterance and addresses it to someone else according to instruction. For example, if a teacher said, ask her how old she is, then students need to say, how old are you? Because teacher said him to ask her how old she is. So according to instruction, student need to say, how old are you? Next one is competition. Student hears an utterance that is complete except for one word, then repeats the utterance in complete form. For example, if a teacher said, I will go to play cricket and you go to play, incomplete, then the students need to say, I will go to play cricket and you go to play soccer. So the students need to finish the sentence. Last one is contraction. A single word stands for a phrase or clause. For example, if a teacher said, put your hand on table, then the student need to say, put your hand there. So the phrase on table is changed as there. There are a lot of demerits and merits in the audio language method. First, we look after the merits. It was the first method to have a theory. It made a language learning accessible to large groups of ordinary learners. It was the first method to lay stress on the language development of syntax, whereas other methods were preoccupied with morphology and vocabulary. Developing simple techniques and making use of language lab. It aims at developing listening and speaking skills, which constitutes step away from the grammar translation method. The stage of the class is more interesting and livelier because all the students act in the classroom. Because teacher always use the drills to make the students act in the classroom. Teachers are easy to teach even if in the big group because by using drilling, teachers can control participation of each participant. The student can imitate the way of native speaker in pronounce the sentence or the words. There are also demerits. First one, this is a teacher-centered method. The ALM makes considerable demands upon the teacher. Students lacked an active role in the classroom as it always the teacher oriented. Students are lacked in the active role. Very little attention is given to communication and content. Students were not able to transfer skills to real communication outside the classroom because they always use the repetition model. Many students find boring and unsatisfying, especially advanced learners, because if they are advanced learners, they mostly do not like this method because they are not ready to repeat it. There is no creativity. Students repeat and memorize what they do not, or even they do not understand. They have to repeat and memorize. Now, basic steps of imitation, repetition, and reinforcement turn students into parrots who can produce many good utterance but never create anything new. Only language form is considered while meaning is neglected because they only consider the language form. So these are the main things inside the audiolingual method. I hope you understand this audiolingual method. I explained about the definition and principles and merits and demerits of the audiolingual method in this presentation. Thank you.